Hi, my name is Othello De'Souza-Hartley. I'm a mixed media artist working in photography, film, painting, drawings and sound. So I started reading things like Ichigo Ichi. I read a book on minimalism, and I'm currently reading a book on simple life. And one of the things I've been thinking about with my new phase of work is how I can make things simple, but also very powerful and in its simplest form. So one of the pieces, like the work you can see around here, also thinking about when I'm doing the painting work, is what I can incorporate, what materials do I have around me? Do I always need to go to a shop and purchase more materials? So if I take this painting over here, when I was doing this painting, I was thinking about, I used like old newspaper, plastic that I would have normally have thrown away. So I incorporated plastic into the mediums and to the paint, and old cardboard, which I was using actually as the brush as well, and incorporate that into the canvas. And the painting behind me really is the one that's really thinking about this things of not filling the whole space of the canvas, but keeping it very simple with lots of negative space. And again, there was rope that I found in my studio. I had there and incorporated rope into the paint. And then the latest work there was some pistachio nuts that I was using, and normally I would throw the pistachio nuts away and then mix those into the medium. When it comes to the photography work, one of my longest projects, I was dealing with masculinity, and that's the first image of the masculinity project which I did, which then became this long project looking at masculinity around the UK and men from different cultures and races. So with I spoke about the painting work, it's very much about emotions, thinking about materiality, things around me, how to make things really simple, but very powerful. In the photographic work, it's sort of performed when I usually use my own body and do self-portraits. You can see this one, which was done in the coal mine. This is a slightly older work, and I'm currently working on the photographic piece when I'm going to be doing performance on a bed, and then creating a sound piece to go with it. I think the biggest challenge of being an artist is not so much making the work, but it's sometimes the business side of the work. If you want to sell your work, to being sustainable and keeping yourself going, because you have to pay for your studio, you have to pay for the materials. Living in a city like London, there's a lot of cost to keep your practice going. And I think that is the biggest challenge, not making the work, but it's how you sustain yourself financially to be an artist. I intend to continue with this thought practice of making really simple but very powerful. So currently I'm working on painting series. I did them small now at the moment, and I'm working on a painting series where I'm going to make the sculptural pieces coming off the canvas. I'm also working on a piece where I'll be hanging from the ceiling, and that's a performance piece to camera. It's a video art piece. Been working on a project for the last couple of years called Fathers and Son, which is another video art piece. And then in the next couple of weeks, I've just been offered a show in Lagos, a group show, and I had an idea previously to getting this, to being included in this group show. From the beginning of the year, I've been about working on a bed in a raw space, because raw spaces tend to feature a lot in my photographic and film work, as you can see. Lots of these either abandoned or raw spaces. This one's a coal mine. This one's called the Asylum, and that's an old chapel. So the piece that I'm going to make in the next couple of weeks is a photographic piece, self-portrait piece on a bed in an abandoned space. And I'm also thinking about how I print the work, rather than just printing photographs on photographic paper. thinking about other materials that I can photograph the work on, and then also incorporating sound with the work. So I'm really interested in sound, but again, this very minimalist sounds, where just so either ambient sounds or creating sounds, which could be like a little, something like little sounds that trigger something, but also when you're creating the sound piece, leaving space for no sound, and then the sound comes back in. So I'm really interested in playing on emotions and how sound can play on the emotions of the audience. And I'm also thinking about meditation a lot. So how these sounds could be quite meditative. So I'm interested in how the sounds can hold the audience in the space. So I did a show last year in Rome, and we didn't use sound, but we created this the exhibition with no lights. And this is at Material Gallery in Rome. It opened in July and ended in September. So thinking in the same thing of sound, we didn't use the lights, and we only used the natural light that came through the window in the gallery. And what that did is it created this more kind of like a peaceful space, because there was no lights. And at the same time, I was reading the book called In Place of Shadows and really appreciating these little dark spaces. But what it does, it kind of, once you're in that sort of space, it kind of just takes your mood down. So what I'm trying to think about is how the sound can create this sort of like a meditative with the work. So it's a space of contemplation, quietness, stillness, and being at one with the work, but also making the work that doesn't overwhelm the audience. It's very simple and subtle, and the kind of work that you look at it once and then there's something about it, or listen to the sound, but it makes you want to come back to it. And the more you come back to it, the more you get from the work. What sort of advice? I think with an artist, you have to be on your own journey. You can't be on nobody else's journey. And it's not always overnight success. It's continuously working at your work, experimenting, developing your work. And I think that's where the emphasis needs to be on your work. And there's also the other side of just not the work, it's also the other side of the networking. But I think the most important thing is just to keep working on your work and have a network of people, because there are going to be times when you have self-doubt about your creativity. And it's nice when you have a group of friends, like I have a group of friends, that you can call and be honest about those moments, or have moments when you can just discuss your work, or say that, you know, I'm particularly lost right now, I'm not really sure what I'm doing, because there is this pressure in the art world to always constantly saying that you're making work. But there's also great moments, and when my creativity comes when I'm doing absolutely nothing. So this year, from December until February, I made no work. I just stopped making work, and I just took time out and took time with my own thoughts and just read a lot. And then in February, I started to create a new body of work, but I couldn't have done that without that moment of stillness and taking time out. So I think that the pressure when people ask you, like, what are you working on, is, to be honest, and say sometimes I'm just developing right now, and just continue with your work. And it's not an overnight success. It's a long journey. Yeah, and having a network of support around you, that really helps.